Players keep missing sessions. May I introduce Porter, your NPC workaround? I've got one player who misses sessions fairly often. They play a wild magic sorcerer, so I've just had them surge to the ethereal plane. They then follow their friends like a ghost, who can watch but not hear or interact with them. When they make it to the next session they surge back to their plane, but they're with their party instead of where they disappeared from. Nice. Another option, it's part of their adventurer guild duties. In my campaign, all the PCs had to join the Boundary Shield, protecting the world from all tame monsters. And it's all BS. This allows them to earn bounties, which basically gives them moral and legal reign to tackle dungeons, fight in the city, etc., and gets them marked by a magical tattoo patch that is delivered to them when they join. Everyone in the guild has to share overhead duties at the headquarters. Whenever a player missed a session, they disappear, teleported back to HQ2, it's always mucking the restrooms. The next time they join, we have a good amount of humor about how they smell, sometimes they are still holding a smelly mop, etc. One session, before all this, I made the mistake of having the PC of the missing player be kidnapped by the local thieves guild, was in story and appropriate. The rest of the party spent half the session trying, and almost succeeding, in catching them, so one lesson is, if you need to remove a missing player's PC from the session, make it very clear that nothing the party can do will help recover them. Smile? I use Pokeballs. We all work together, work after hours, incident management, emergency operations, etc. so we can get unexpectedly called away. Every player has two characters. If someone needs to dip, someone throws out their Pokeball character to make up for the missing player. I could totally see Porter as some old guy who randomly abducts the absent PCs so they can help him with tasks he can't normally do at home, or would take him a long time. Maybe every now and then, he sends them back with a bag of Goodberry muffins or cookies for the party to enjoy as compensation for the random disappearances. Also, anytime a new character is introduced mid-dungeon, it could be from how he met them on the street and thought they should have some nice playmates, so he drops them with the party to have fun. Basically make Porter act like the cool and kind grandpa or grandma of the group. Pathfinder has a fun concept known as metagame artifacts, 4 items which allow for metagame control over the universe at large. This reminds me of one of them, the Scar of Destiny. This scar appears on specific individuals at birth, or as a result of powerful but unexplained magical confluences. Anyone with this mark is untethered from reality, and might step out of existence at any moment for indeterminate periods, possibly forever. All of that individual's possessions vanish with him, though occasionally specific items, seemingly of the mark bearer's choosing, are left behind. When and if an individual reappears, he is unharmed and has no knowledge of where he was, and only a vague idea of how much time has passed. Such individuals typically reappear near others who bear the mark. Kind of a hilarious workaround emo for situations such as this. I can totally see this Porter guy acting a bit non-linear and stuff. Like, he want to put one player where he's meant to be, but he forget that he's not supposed to be here yet. So you just find your party member outside of the dungeon because Porter forgot that your bro had to beat the dungeon before getting there. He'd speak like he is talking with someone on multiple point of time, asking a question then going on a tirade about a totally unrelated subject, for seemingly no reasons. Love the idea of some new join PC. This wizard came up to me on the street and asked if I was an adventurer, and when I said yes, now I'm here. Party, size long robe with stars. Bright blue hat. PC, yeah. Party, that's Porter. You get used to Dave is teleported away before he finish his sentence. I was doing a West Marches style campaign at my local gaming store and absolutely included the local enchanter who also was able to teleport people to the stone that was carried by the party. The stone was key though. Couldn't get people to anything else. Important that, We use clever angles, old footage, and CGI when our characters don't make it. I got the idea from American television stealing and changing Japanese television. Questions like where did this character come from? Why does this dwarf look surprisingly like the last 6 we encountered? Why wasn't Allrond in the last 6 episodes only to show up and deliver the final blow? Edit, adding a relevant Simpsons clip to drive home the point. This is fun. I only had one time where a player couldn't make a session, and I said as a joke that his character had terrible, nightmarish diarrhea and couldn't come on the quest. It started as a joke, but then I wrote up a quick adventure for the next session when everyone was back about a local ne'er-do-well who had sold spoiled meat to the whole town and the party found him and brought him to justice. It was a silly good time. I DM at a secondary school. Whenever a new player joins we pull them out of the bag of holding. I joined an ongoing campaign, and this was how my character joined the party. He hid in a bag of holding while his friends were eaten by an ooze. The bag was in the ooze and he was going to die soon had the players not saved the bag and the terrified goblin friend inside. I used nearly this same gimmick almost 20 years ago. Porter was instead a slightly befuddled-seeming old wizard, who would mutter to PCs "You're not supposed to be here right now," then teleport them elsewhere. Or he would bring them back to the party and say that's better. He never provided any explanation before he disappeared himself. He was always preceded by the smell of his pipe smoke, which lingered long after he left. I let them hear rumors that it was the god of fate in his avatar form. It was a great out for whatever I needed to change. I even started the next campaign that way. He just picked 5 random adventurers and teleported them into a dungeon together. This is a fantastic idea, if done right. It could even be a backstory thing for the characters that can't make it, if they come up with something but is unable to place it in the narrative. Porter can even be a warlock patron with a few adjustments. That sounds incredibly fun, NGL. If I ever run a campaign, I may have to add this idea, though I do admit, I also had an idea of a fox, or an animal guide. Completely mysterious, but can guide the party through a tough place that they can't figure out if they treat it nicely, or to their doom if they mistreat it. It's more like a spirit. They don't die, but only appears when most needed, or a way to give a struggling party some gear that they need. Whether the gear is easily accessible or not again depends on how it's treated. Maybe I'm dumb, I don't bother finding an in-game reason for people not being there, but how is this better than just ignoring them not being there? Like it feels way more invasive and meta-breaking to keep reminding people of the wizard called Porter than it does to just ignore the fact someone is missing, doesn't it? If ever they meet Porter, please make his full name be Archimedes Q. Porter. That was, to the best of my memory, the full name of the old man/explorer/father of Jane from Disney's Tarzan animated movie. In an old PC game based on it, he hosted the main menu. Anytime you'd return he'd cheerily say, "Archimedes Q. Porter, at your service." Specifically the inflection on "at your service" was, syllabically, up down down up. It has remained in my head as a little earworm all these years, and it would tickle me pink if anyone knew what I was referring to. I'll try to dig up a video of it or something. Edit, the audio quality is abysmal, and it's not quite as cheery as I remember, but this video is an overview of the game in mention, Disney's Tarzan Activity Center. Voice line in question is around the 1-minute mark. This sounds like Q from Star Trek TNG almost. Have an all-powerful omnipotent being that has taken a passing interest in the small comparatively trivial lives of your adventuring party. For fun you could probably have your Q/Porter mess with the party and create new obstacles in unexpected ways as well for their own amusement. I can see how useful this would be, but kind of glad we haven't done this at my table, at least for our last session. We had to pilot our missing players, but their abilities came in clutch in the boss fight. It's always a risk when players can't make it to the boss fight, since they can feel understandably upset if their character was to die while someone else was using them. Still, the monk's stunning strike and the final hit on the boss from our paladin were both dearly needed. I just used the Grey Plague. Characters become monotone and mute. They are unable to interact with or largely perceive the world around them. They just mindlessly follow who they're close to, the party. NPCs don't address it, because it's rude, and the plague is both harmless and fleeting. It goes away on its own in however long the absence is, in real time. Usually a day or two, in-game. Or, just an idea, say player isn't here, so play like character isn't here, next game they will just be here again. No need for it to translate into the game. Don't worry, I'll adjust encounters for you. That's more or less what we do, and, also, I thought was the way everyone did it. If you're an adult, you're going to miss sessions, or you're making unhealthy life decisions with your prioritization. Anyone who claims they don't is lying. Obviously, frequency matters. If your group meets weekly, you're going to miss sessions. If you're meeting up once every 3 months, okay, that's an event that's not unreasonable to expect people to schedule around. But even then people get sick, people go on vacation, etc. I don't see how hard this is for people. I have a group of 6, up to 2 can miss before I cancel the session. If they're not there, they're still there in spirit but don't actively participate, obviously. This is the compromise between consistent storytelling and never playing D&D ever again. Ha! This is a great idea, and I had a similar one. Instead of a wizard who likes to help, my workaround is based on the Bubbles of Evil in the What series. The beg, whoever and whatever it is causing a ripple in the space-time continuum area your adventurers are questing through. Similar to an environment effect of a legendary creature, it has plagued the entire land of your campaign. This way I was able to pull my PCs into the game by having them describe an average day in their character's life, and I interrupt them with a bubble of evil. Shit goes down, and just before they get hurt or attacked into it, they are pulled to another dimension and into our world/game. This also works for when they miss a session. At the start of the session a bubble of evil forms and pulls the absent player's characters to another realm, which they may or may not remember happening. If the player needs a leave of absence, and want to rejoin the game later, this allows a reason for them to come back at a comparable level to the rest of the players. We just have a quick chat, input some Cole's Notes version of what happened to them in their absence. Another benefit of this is when your players get cocky, a bubble of evil opens and several op monsters pop out. If it looks like it will result in a TPK, have another Bubbo Evil open and save the day. You see, Bubs O Evil are shitty for everyone involved, good, evil, monster or player alike. Bubbles of Evil are your friend, DMs. My favorite in-game explanation is still my high school group's solution. Life on the road is hard, especially on a diet entirely of mysterious tavern substances, and it'll be especially hard on your teeth. To keep those pearly whites from giving you a penalty to charisma checks, a character might have to make the occasional trip into the bag of dentistry, a sack any party carried to being them to the ethereal waiting room for their next appointment. One of our players had to work every other session, so his character was cursed and bound to a gemstone. Whenever he's unable to make the session, he's sucked into the stone. It works out well, and he's actually played it into his character. Anytime it looks like we're heading for a TPK, his character will teleport out of danger with the other PC that's carrying his stone and make a run for it. We found him in the basement of a dungeon after being stuck there for decades. The last thing he wants is to be trapped in another one if everyone dies and he gets sucked back in again. Oh. We just delegate playing their character to someone else until they return. If they're gone for more than 3 sessions, they stay at the clubhouse for a while. I always find this awkward because A. What if their character dies? D. Some players are much more profligate with abilities than others, which can be particularly important on spellcasters. It sucks to come back and find all your big guns you've been saving spent up and spend the next few weeks cantripping.
Hey adventurers and fellow Redditors, are you tired of hearing the same old battle music during your D&D sessions? Or just looking for the perfect soundtrack for your next epic quest? Well, let me introduce you to Amazon Music Unlimited. With Amazon Music Unlimited, you get access to over 100 million songs, ad-free. That means whether you need an intense combat playlist, relaxing tunes for a tavern scene, or just something to vibe to while scrolling Reddit, we've got you covered. And it's not just about music, there are thousands of podcasts too. So if you need a break between campaigns, you can catch up on your favorite shows. Plus, there's the best part. If you sign up today, you can try it free for 30 days. No commitment, no hassle, just endless music and podcasts tailored to your taste. So whether you're crafting your next D&D campaign, painting minis, or just chilling with your party, make your soundtrack legendary with Amazon Music Unlimited. Hit the link below and start your free trial now, because every adventure needs a killer soundtrack.
A. As general courtesy, we try to keep their characters out of the way, at range, and DM tries to avoid killing them if possible. But all players have acknowledged that the risk of character death is the penalty they pay for missing a session. The DM adjusts the combat so we can rely more on the players who are already there. Absent players are usually given support roles like running messages, healing, etc. However, most of us are familiar enough with their most useful abilities. If players miss a non-combat session, they just tell us if there is something they wanted their character to do that day, like I need to go buy armor. Usually missing a session involves some degree of us fucking with their character. For example, the dwarf sorcerer's player couldn't make a session, so we had him seduce a tabaxi dragon chess player, and in a couple months he may have to deal with a litter of half dwarf half tabaxi offspring. I personally love crafting ways my players aren't there for some reason. Right now the party's wizard is away. As a side note, I allow my players to change their subclasses/classes, basically anything that they aren't wholesale happy with, until level 4 or 5 pending on the length of the campaign. Thus, allowing me to craft why they are no longer a evocation wizard, and is now a transmutation one. For this particular player, they were looting a mirror dimension dungeon that was collapsing. The session ended with the wizard picking up a scroll. Since he's missing the following sessions, I have him in the scroll, stuck in time. While there, he's utilizing the dungeon library to change his subclass. The drawback is he's aging a year in the process as time moves differently. I would also like to point out that my party started out as level 2 adventurers. Remember the Jade Frog statue from the beginning dungeon from Ulmop? I DM'd a group of newbies. Of course, some of them had to cancel a game once or twice. So the PC got eaten by the frog statue. After finishing Ulmop, I used the frog statue as a portal to the Limbus. The Beg tried to summon the Slad and was searching for the statue. My players loved it. In our game, our goblin player missed last week's game. Last week's game was shopping and Neverwinter, and there was some kind of party in the hotel that we were staying in. Our in-game excuse was that he ate some suspicious mushrooms that a party guest gave him, and he was strapped in a baby carrier fashioned from vines our druid character made on one of the bigger players' back. While under the effects, he bought a pet giant spider, and by the time we realized what he'd done, it was too late. No refunds or exchanges. So he's going to laugh when he shows back up next time with a giant spider following him around, giving him the occasional nuzzles. For background, this character has been attacked by spiders every game so far. 99% of sessions with one of my groups ends with a long rest unless it's for the cliffhangers. If a player is MIA, we have dream episodes, basically little one-offs with the rest of the party. Knowing my DM, they are probably related to the plot, cause every item we've gotten in the dream we woke up with. For a while I ran a campaign where the characters were interdimensional travelers. It was King Arthur and the Knights of the Multiverse. Everyone got to make a character how they wanted, but they had to take the name of a knight from King Arthur's table. It was very flavor of the week and had little bits of long-term story mixed in. Whoever didn't show just wasn't going on the adventure to that dimension that week. It also allowed me to change genres and themes completely from week to week, which was actually really fun. Back in the day we always had a guild bracelet of summoning. Basically you have X amount of stones on the bracelet, one for each character. Cheesy. Yeah, but it's easier than trying to go through the difficulty of explaining why random jagoff weren't there for X battle. Nowadays we mostly go with they were fucking off in a different area, now they're back with you. Just as easy. I ran a game where the players started in a magical fight prison. They had collars around their necks that would teleport them into an arena randomly when it was time for them to fight. Obviously the collars are impossible to remove because reasons. The first session was them breaking out of the arena and breaking the giant crystal that controls the collars. But oh no. It didn't shut the crystal down. It only made it work erratically. Out of character, it was explicitly only ever used for dealing with characters when a player had to miss. I used to bend over backwards trying to find an in-game solution to why a player would miss one session and come right back into the fold. Spending a ton of energy on elaborate stories of how they aren't there now but weave them back in. That is until I realized I was literally the only person who truly cared and my players were completely down with hand-waving them back. A solution like this is simple and elegant, I love it. We created an adventurer support agency for similar purposes. In-game reasons can get really creative with this. From maladies which can only be cured by a special potion brewed, by the agency for an exact number of hours, until the player goes back, or support NPCs that can substitute said player without hassles for the story. Our group's solution was to make a side adventures game. It's a completely different party that runs one-shots, or more as needed. We benefit from a group where 4 out of the 6 of us love to DM. So while one of us is running the main campaign, currently the other 3 can just run a fun one-shot with another party of adventurers. It works great if the main DM needs a little break too. We can run it fast and loose with UA, if we want, so it's a great way to blow off steam. It lets us maintain a set game night even if someone can't make it. I once the end after a session having my party take turns rolling a d20, starting at 1, if the player rolled higher than a 1, they got a random magic item, the next player had to roll higher than a 2, and so on. As the number got higher the items got better. It was a dumb idea but it was so much fun. Now my players will be in some encounter I planned and have some very random magic item that comes in clutch. I love it. I knew I would have this issue, with my players wanting to play, and no one having coinciding days off. My solution was to put them all through a faulty portal, and have them blink out of the plane whenever they can't make a session. The first time, I ran a session for them to figure out how to traverse the portal corridor, but now the PCs have the hang of it. It's just a plot device of convenience. I do something very similar. Porter, meet Kurani, the Chronomancer. When a player has to miss a session, Kurani appears in a whirl of sand, and absconds with the player. You see, Kurani has seen the past, present, and future, but unfortunately he cannot intervene in the lives of those that live in a linear fashion, darn Linos. But the players can. I started them off by one player noticing that someone poisoned their tea on an LMX ride to the capital. Luckily, they disguised themselves and clumsily knocked over the poisoned tea, and then reported the poisoner to a guard to be arrested, and certainly that's not gonna come back into play later. Now that they know that they have opportunities to save their own lives, if a player misses a session and comes back, Kurani then allows them to mitigate a harmful effect. Did a party member fail a climbing check next session? Wow! How did that cart full of pillows randomly get there? Mechanically enhanced arrow that can steal a spellcaster's ability to use magic headed right towards them. Whoa. That enemy standing next to them has their shoelaces tied together somehow and they tripped and the arrow hit them instead. Amazing. Failed charisma roll to get a shopkeep to lower their prices. Who just strolled by asking if that really was the writer for the local paper that happens to run make or break articles reviewing the exact thing that they happen to be haggling for. It can lead to some fun possibilities, and if there happens to be a player death or, gasp, a TPK. Well, messing with the time stream can have some unintended consequences. Maybe Kurani didn't see that coming since, through a wild Rube Goldbergian series of events, getting 10 grams off of that +1 javelin somehow caused the beg to stomp the party into dust? I mean, the 10 grams was going to help the shopkeeper's daughter with her spelling lessons, but they couldn't pay the tutor, who instead had to use their knowledge of the common language and writing to forge signatures to make ends meet, which allowed passports to be created to allow more people into the capital city illegally, which in turn left the county clerk bored with less work to do. And since they were bored and sleepy, they didn't review that one blueprint being submitted to the city closely enough to note that there was a hole in the defenses of the city that let the beg in and then they kill the party. Or something. Also, LMX are elemental-powered steam trains, because what else are you gonna do with a fire and water elemental when society has gotten to the point of drawing up quid pro quo contracts with elemental lords? Fire elemental comes over for a few hours in return for some kindling to take back to the plane of fire. Water elemental comes over with some pollution from the plane of water to be cleansed. The train goes from point A to point B, everyone's happy. I actually worked in people going missing as part of a game I ran because I know my friends are pretty busy, but still liked to play. As part of the story, the PCs were teleported to an island by choice in order to gain a wish by acquiring a set number of tokens. They had to survive on the island, and gain tokens through their deeds, good or bad, but the game was open to anyone who wanted to join and nobody was forced to be at every session. So people would be teleported in and out of events at any point, when a player missed a session, and they were actually being experimented on by the island deity, but not known to them. They would return with no memories, and it was a common sight on this island for people to be gone for several days. We had a rogue who couldn't be there all the time, and this was known before we started the campaign. His backstory was that he was a father and sometime needed quick money or some time off from the wife. So at the beginning of every session with the rogue he came out of a bush like, "Hey guys." And at the end just went away, "See you later." Freaking thank you. As a player I hate the and your character fades into the background when you aren't there. It actually completely ruined the fun of one of my characters because I was missing so many sessions due to various things, because I had to be the one to make up where she was and what she was doing within reason because the GM didn't see an issue with the fade to the back method. Sorry, I didn't want my character technically there and her brother got punched, which would have led her to kill the guy the rest of the party befriended. Sorry, I didn't want my very devout cleric there when the party found out the gods were a freaking scam. This seems like it's a bit unnecessary. I vaguely see the point. But in the groups I'm in we just don't address it. Rather than have an in-world justification for the DM's fiat that could technically be hijacked or be used to poke increasing number of holes in a plot, we just assume the character is present, or busy doing something else, then pick up when they come back. Players will remember the fun times adventuring, the incredibly noodly ways to get a character to exist or not exist just seems unnecessary. Your idea is good, but I prefer the one I stole from XP to level 3. The Keeper is a mysterious being who seeks to right the flow of time. He'll move travelers through his tea room of time if they need to go to another place or time. The PCs then have tea with him for a bit until he takes them to where they must go. There are 2 characters whose players have left my games for life reasons. I put them in the tea room and they will have tea outside of time until the players can return to the table. I have a player in my current campaign that, due to his work schedule, is often at least 1 hour late to session. As a workaround, I gave the party a magic item called the Turtle of Holding. There's a gem in the turtle's shell that acts like a bag of holding, with the caveat that it can only hold one thing. It's based on the character Coco Jumbo from JoJo's. Whenever that one player isn't at session yet, we just say he's in the turtle, since he technically counts as one thing. I usually switch between either giving a party a vehicle and just saying that whomever happens to be absent is manning the cart, or just outright starting session and noting that while everyone else is busy, the characters that's not with the party wanders off to follow up on another thing, like getting rations, repairing their gear, or finding a tavern with fewer lice. I have a party that, in session 0, agreed we're all adults with adult schedules, and it would be highly probably we'd be missing at least one person every single week, but probably not the same person from week to week. To resolve this narratively, I initially came up with this incredibly convoluted idea of giving them a handheld device that they could attune to as a group that would teleport them to their own personal little pocket dimension castle. I had a bunch of ideas for it, with like multiple floors and areas, bedrooms, storage areas for loot, rooms for workshops for if they wanted to do downtime projects, and every area had windows to, unmapped and largely inaccessible, places in the universe, like an open window into the elemental plane of air with limitless sky in every direction, and another sealed one looking into the plane of water but with a spigot to get fresh water out of. They could use it as a base to do with as they pleased when they wanted to, but the side effect was that the device was buggy, and would randomly port people inside of it unexpectedly, like if, say, somebody had to suddenly vanish in the middle of a combat encounter. Anyways, long story short, I chickened out. It took me too long to set up the situation to get them the device, and by the time I did we were already in the habit of just being, like, oh, in between last session and this session Nyan just sort of wandered away. I'm sure he's fine. When I ran for Adventurers League, I would always use the Cloak of Greater Destiny. A powerful magical artifact that each character had that, when required, would whisk the character away to some even more important thing that they had to take care of. Then, when they were done, poof, right back to the party. Adventurers League was a bit more slapdash and less serious though.
Hey there, fantasy fans. If you're looking for an epic listen, you have to check out Rosamund Pike's narration of the Wheel of Time audiobook. Rosamund Pike brings so much life to Robert Jordan's world, her performance adds an extra layer of depth to the characters, making the story even more immersive, whether it's her portrayal of the fearless Aes Sedai or the intense magical battles. She nails it. It's like experiencing the Wheel of Time in a whole new way. And here's the best part. You can get it for free with Audible's 30-day trial of Audible Plus. You'll get access to this incredible audiobook and more, completely free for a month. So if you're ready to dive into this massive fantasy world, this is the perfect way to start. Don't miss out. Check the link below and start your journey today. 100% free for qualifying people. Completely free. Click the link.